We welcome now our radio and our television audiences together as we speak to the Governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. Governor, thank you very much indeed for stopping by once again to join us.
Great to be with you. And we were together last year in Paris, and here we are in Farnborough, and there's a lot of planes flying today.
We've hopefully got a quiet patch in the air display that you and I can have a conversation and we can both hear each other. So that's fantastic. Look, the big news obviously over the last 24 hours is Joe Biden stepping aside.
Yeah.
A, is this a surprise? B, what does it mean, do you think?
Well, so I'm a Republican governor, and so I'm seeing it from the other side, but the amount of pressure that his party was placing on him to step aside was enormous, and there has been chaos in the Democratic Party, and we've all watched it with the performance, of course, of Joe Biden's administration and the realization that Donald Trump is now ahead in polls in states that Joe Biden won by 10 points, like Virginia, where Joe Biden won by 10 in 2020, and now Donald Trump is either even or up in the polls. And on top of that, you really do see Joe Biden faltering on his ability to campaign. So no, not a huge surprise. I do think that it's important that the polls really haven't moved much in the last day.
Right.
And I think that reflects the fact that Virginians and Americans recognize that it was the Biden-Harris administration, and she owns the performance, and it's not going to be any different than the one that Joe Biden had.
Sounds like you think they should select somebody else.
Well, it's their choice to select who they want, but I will say that they haven't really selected anybody yet, and I do think the chaos that we've seen in the Democratic Party selection process is only matched by the chaos that they've unleashed on the world and the country. We've had foreign policy chaos, and I firmly believe that if Donald Trump were president, we wouldn't have war in Ukraine, we wouldn't have the chaos in the Middle East that we have, nor will we see China threatening Taiwan like they are. And if Donald Trump were president, we would certainly have a secure border, and therefore every state like Virginia wouldn't be seeing the violence, the drug overdoses, and the illegal immigrant crisis that we've got. And if Donald Trump were president today, I don't think we would have seen the runaway inflation that Joe Biden unleashed and Kamala Harris on America.
So if it is Kamala Harris, do you think Virginia is still winnable? Does it change the arithmetic in any shape or form?
I think that Virginia is still in play.
Right.
And what we're seeing, of course, is Virginians are stating that they want strong leadership, not weak leadership.
Yep.
They know that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden led this administration together, and that track record is her track record. And I think that Americans are reflecting the same sentiment.
Yep.
They're ready for strength in the White House, not weakness.
Why do you think that the Ukraine war wouldn't have happened if President Trump had been around and running things at that point in time?
Because I think he projects strength.
Right.
And we know that there is peace through strength. And Joe Biden, starting with his disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, all the way through to placating China, to empty threats on the international stage, only elicits other countries to do bad things. I mean, he completely funded the Iranian assault in the Middle East, because when Joe Biden became president, he undid all of the sanctions and all of the isolation that Donald Trump had placed them in.
Let's just stick with Ukraine if we can for a moment. Would the Republican Party continue to support Ukraine? Should the Republican Party, should President Trump and his vice president continue to support Ukraine? Do you think that aid should be there?
Well, let me just begin with the clear statement that the Republican Party as a whole is for defeating Putin. I think what we'll see, of course, is all elements brought together. First thing we'll do is we will secure the border. And that has been the biggest complaint from the Republican Party, is we're sending a lot of money overseas, and we haven't even secured our own border. And I think on day one, President Trump will secure our border and stop the chaos that has ensued with illegal immigration. Listen, we've had terrorists come across the border, and we had two illegal immigrants try to crash the front gate at Quantico Marine Corps base in a box truck in Virginia. And of course, the free flow of drugs is killing people left, right, and center. We have 5 a day that on average die in Virginia. Job one, secure the border. And then I do believe that support around the world in order to bring peace back through strength will be real. And this is the double approach that I think we'll see under a Trump administration.
Because from a European perspective, it looks like we're going to see a more isolationist government were Trump to win.
Well, I do think what we're going to see is a government that is, one, going to be very clear about what we're going to do, and one that is going to require all of our partners to play a full role. And I believe our partners will. I think what we.
What does playing a full role mean then? Is that 2.5% NATO? Is that 3.5% NATO? What is that?
Well, I think historically it was asking NATO to pay 2% of their GDP in defense, and we've seen a lot of the NATO countries come there. Not all of them, but I think this is also a recognition that Putin is not going to stop at the Ukraine, and everybody needs to do their fair share.
Yep. So is 2.5 enough? Is 3? Where's the number in your mind?
Well, that's going to settle out as we see what the overall spending is going to be to do what we need to do. But I will say this, that I think that the United States will constantly be a great partner, but we also require great partners. And I think that's really what Peace Through Strength is all about.
The debate here at the Farnborough Air Show is, if we have to spend more money, we're going to try and spend it here. A lot of the defense companies are based in your state. You comfortable with that? If Europe's going to spend more money, should Europe spend that money domestically?
Well, again, there's going to need to be a capabilities match to the need, and a lot of the capabilities have been developed in the United States.
Do you think Europe's capable of doing that?
I think there are certain elements, yes, and there are certain areas where the U.S. capabilities are going to be paramount, and I think the combination of that is really important. We've got a lot of European companies that want to come set up in the United States. A lot of them want to come to Virginia. It's one of the main reasons why I'm here. You may have heard we were ranked top state in America for business, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of them want to come to Virginia. But this idea of European companies coming to the United States and manufacturing and building is really important, and I do think the blending of capabilities on the global stage will provide the best outcomes.
One of the reasons they might be coming to the United States to manufacture is because they're worried about tariffs. Should they be worried about tariffs?
Well, I think they should be worried about tariffs if their country is imposing tariffs on the United States goods. And again, free trade has not always meant free trade, and I think it needs to be fair and reciprocal. And when we look at just the evolution of the trade agreements with China over the last few decades, China had unlimited access to the U.S. market, restricted access to their market, and it wasn't until President Trump struck a really tough China trade deal that we began to really treat them like they are, which is really an adversary who's trying to dominate the world, and they're doing it, yes, through economic coercion and imperialism, but also through military saber-rattling, and their surveillance of the world is unparalleled, and so we have to treat them as such, and that means we've got to stand up and use the tools in our toolkit in order to combat it.
Would those tariffs, with the tools that you're talking about being in the toolkit, if they were applied, do you think that's inflationary for the average American?
The short answer is competition is what combats inflation, and as long as we have strong competitive markets, then the short answer is most likely not. But what we do need to recognize is that what is inflationary for the average American is unlimited runaway spending, which is what we saw in the Biden administration. It was irresponsible. They flooded the market with government spending on an unnecessary basis, and that's why we saw inflation like we haven't seen for four decades. And that's why the average American, when they go to the grocery store, they literally, it's a gut punch every time they go in. Gas prices are run away from them, and why 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck because they can't keep up with the runaway inflation we've seen over the last 3.5 years.
Governor, great to see you. Thanks for stopping by to see us. Always a
God
pleasure.
Bless you. Come to Virginia.
I will look forward to it. I've been. I love it. Thank you very much indeed. Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. Back to you.